One was a soft-spoken high school teacher who smiled at his students every morning and then emptied a country and killed a quarter of its people in 4 years. The other was a drugged-out Satanist who climbed through unlocked windows in suburban California and killed 13 people in 14 months with no pattern at all. Both were pure chaos agents. Both broke every rule of the systems they operated inside. Both have left wounds that have not healed. Tonight, Pol Pot against Richard Ramirez. The round of 16 concludes. The teacher against the stalker. Round of 16, match 8. Pol Pot arrives in this round as the champion of episode 16, where he defeated Idi Amin by the highest percentage death toll any dictator has achieved in modern history. Richard Ramirez arrives as the wildcard champion of episode 22, where he defeated Dennis Rader because his ceiling for damage was higher and his cruelty was deeper. Tonight, the polite teacher who killed a third of his country and the Satanist who killed without pattern. One question: whose chaos did more damage? Welcome back to Evil vs. Evil, Monsters of History. The Tournament of Champions concludes the round of 16. This is episode 32. Born in Prek Spav, Cambodia, in 1925, Saloth Sa, the man the world would come to know as Pol Pot, was the 8th of 9 children in a modestly prosperous Khmer farming family along the Songkhe River. His father was a landowner. His sister was a concubine at the royal palace. By Cambodian standards of the time, he grew up comfortably. In 1949, he won a scholarship to study radio electronics in Paris. He never graduated. Instead, he discovered the French Communist Party. He read Marx in French. He returned to Cambodia in 1953 as a committed communist revolutionary determined to build a peasant utopia in the rice paddies of his homeland. For the next 20 years, he was a teacher of French and history at a Phnom Penh high school. His students remembered him as the gentlest teacher in the school. He spoke softly. He smiled often. He never raised his voice. In the evenings, after the bell rang, he went home to plan one of the most radical revolutions in human history. In 1968, his Communist Party, which he had renamed the Khmer Rouge, began a guerrilla war against the Cambodian government. By 1973, the American bombing of Cambodia during the Vietnam War had destabilized the countryside and driven hundreds of thousands of refugees into Pol Pot's arms. On April 17, 1975, the Khmer Rouge entered Phnom Penh. Pol Pot called it Year Zero. He emptied the cities at gunpoint within 72 hours. 2 million people, the entire population of Phnom Penh, were marched into the countryside on foot. The sick died on the road. The elderly died in the ditches. Children died in their parents' arms. In the countryside, he abolished money, schools, hospitals, religion, music, books, eyeglasses, and most professions. Anyone who could read, anyone who spoke a foreign language, anyone who wore eyeglasses, anyone who had soft hands, anyone who looked like a former city dweller, was killed. The educated, the Buddhist monks, the ethnic Vietnamese, and ethnic Cham, doctors, engineers, lawyers, teachers. They were marched to mass graves, where Khmer Rouge soldiers, often teenagers, killed them with farm tools rather than waste bullets. The notorious Tuol Sleng prison processed at least 20,000 prisoners through torture and execution. Only 7 inmates survived. Across the country, an estimated 1.5 to 2 million Cambodians, roughly 1/4 of the entire population, died in less than 4 years. The Khmer Rouge regime ended in January 1979, when Vietnam invaded Cambodia and drove Pol Pot's army into the western jungle. He spent the next 19 years hiding in the mountains along the Thai border, still leading a diminished Khmer Rouge insurgency, still claiming he had done nothing wrong. He died on April 15, 1998, of apparent heart failure, the night before he was to be handed over to American authorities for trial. That was Pol Pot, the polite teacher who emptied a nation. Born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960, Ricardo Leyva Muñoz Ramirez was the youngest of 5 children of Mexican immigrants. His father was a railroad laborer prone to violent rages. His mother had been exposed to chemicals during her pregnancy at a boot factory, and Ricardo was born with epilepsy and a learning disability that made school nearly impossible. The defining trauma of his childhood was his older cousin Mike, a Special Forces veteran who had served 2 tours in Vietnam and had returned home with severe psychological damage and a collection of Polaroid photographs documenting atrocities he had committed against Vietnamese women. 12-year-old Ricardo was present in the same room when, in 1973, Mike shot and killed his own wife Jessie in front of him with a single round to the face. Ricardo watched her die. He never spoke about it for decades. He moved to Los Angeles as a teenager. He became a habitual drug user. In 1984, at the age of 24, he began killing for just over a year. Between June 1984 and August 1985, Richard Ramirez terrorized Los Angeles in a way no killer had ever managed before. He had no signature victim type. He killed men, women, the elderly, and children. His youngest victim was 9 years old. His oldest was 83. He attacked in white neighborhoods and black neighborhoods, in wealthy enclaves and working-class suburbs. He moved like fog, entering homes through unlocked windows in the middle of the night, killing one or both adult occupants, raping if there was a female present, then leaving as silently as he had arrived. Hardware stores in Southern California ran out of window locks. Gun sales tripled. He drew pentagrams on his victims, bodies in lipstick. He scrawled the words "Jack the Knife" on a wall in one home. He forced surviving victims to swear oaths to Satan before he left. The press named him the Night Stalker. He was finally caught on August 31st, 1985, when a Los Angeles newspaper published his mugshot from a prior arrest. He was recognized in an East Los Angeles convenience store and beaten unconscious by neighborhood residents with a steel pipe before police could arrive. He was convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death. He died of B-cell lymphoma on June 7, 2013, on death row in San Quentin, before any of those sentences could be carried out. That was Richard Ramirez, the killer who hunted in the dark with no pattern at all. Now let us put these 2 chaos agents side by side in the round of 16. Category 1. Body count. Pol Pot killed approximately 1.7 million Cambodians, roughly a quarter of his country's population, in 4 years. Ramirez killed 13 confirmed and possibly a handful more. The edge is Pol Pot, by 5 orders of magnitude. Category 2. Method of chaos. Pol Pot's chaos was ideological. He believed he was building a utopia, and the killings were the cost of admission. Ramirez's chaos was theological. He believed he was performing acts of devotion to Satan, and the killings were the prayer. Both rejected normal rules. The edge in scale is Pol Pot. The edge in pure, incoherent randomness is Ramirez. Category 3. Speed of damage. Pol Pot killed 1.7 million people in 3 years and 9 months, a rate of approximately 1,200 deaths per day. Ramirez killed 13 people in 14 months, a rate of approximately 1 death per month. The edge in killing velocity is Pol Pot, by every conceivable measure. Category 4. Capacity for greater damage. This is the tournament category. Pol Pot was driven out of power by an invading army before he could finish what he started. Given another decade, he probably kills another 2 million people. His ideological program had no built-in stopping point. It would have killed until there was no one left to kill. Ramirez was caught after 14 months, but his death rate was rising at the moment of capture. Given another year of freedom, his number doubles. Given another 5 years, he might reach the low hundreds. But hundreds is not millions. The edge in scaling capacity is Pol Pot. Category 5. Cultural footprint. Pol Pot is essentially unknown outside Southeast Asia in academic circles. The killing fields, despite its horror, has not produced the same Western cultural penetration as either the Holocaust or the Soviet purges. Ramirez became one of the most photographed defendants in American legal history, the subject of multiple documentaries, books, and television series. The edge in raw fame, narrowly, is Ramirez. The edge in actual historical magnitude is Pol Pot, so the categories split 4-1 in favor of Pol Pot. But categories do not capture everything. Here is the wild card. What if Ramirez had been given Pol Pot's apparatus? An army, an ideology, a country. He had the appetite for cruelty. He had the willingness to kill anyone in front of him. But he had no organizational discipline. He would have been killed by his own lieutenants within a year for the same reason he was eventually caught in Los Angeles. He could not stop himself. Now what if Pol Pot had been given Ramirez's life? A single drug addict with no army and no theory? He would not have killed anyone. He needed the apparatus, the ideology, and the country. Strip those away, and Pol Pot is a quiet teacher who never raises his voice. The verdict. Pol Pot advances. Richard Ramirez is eliminated from the bracket. The decision is not close. Ramirez was a serial killer. Pol Pot was a genocidaire. The serial killer killed 13. The genocidaire killed 1.7 million. In a tournament designed to find the most dangerous human being who has ever lived. The man who emptied his entire country beats the man who emptied 13 bedrooms every single time. But here is the part that should disturb you. Richard Ramirez has been the subject of more American documentaries, podcasts, and dramatic adaptations than Pol Pot, despite Pol Pot's body count being more than 100,000 times larger. The killer who killed 13 has been turned into a cultural fascination. The killer who killed 1.7 million has been almost forgotten. The scale of evil, it turns out, becomes its own kind of forgetting. We can stand the killer who fit in a bedroom. We cannot fully comprehend the killer who fit in a country. Pol Pot was the teacher. Ramirez was the knight. Pol Pot moves on to the quarterfinals. Richard Ramirez is eliminated from the Tournament of Champions. The round of 16 is over. 8 survivors remain. Mao Zedong, Genghis Khan, Joseph Stalin, Niccolò Machiavelli, Julius Caesar, Vladimir Lenin, Kim Jong-il, Pol Pot. The quarterfinals begin in the next episode. We are getting closer to the most dangerous human being who has ever lived.